Hey guys, have you ever wondered why some items in Dota 2 are dissemblable and some are not, for seemingly weird, arbitrary reasons? Hopefully I can help answer that question today. Let's get started.
Hey guys, if you like my content, hit those like and subscribe buttons. It really helps me out. Thanks.
Okay, so let's start a little bit with items that are disassemblable and work into items that are not. So, long story short, if you want a one-word answer of why some items are disassemblable and some are not, it's due to balance. But in what way is it balanced? Well, the nuanced way, it's probably the most nuanced aspect or nuanced example, let me adjust this mic slightly, of balance in all of Dota 2, in all seriousness. It's one of those things that there's nothing in the thumbnail that's going to tell you if something is disassemblable or not. You have to learn and keep track of it on your own. And making an item disassemblable, especially a weak item, can make it very, very, very desirable. And by weak, I mean weak in terms of item slot value. So you don't want it as your final 6 slot items, but you would love to have one for 20 minutes because it's very good for the price. So let's talk about some items, and I'll get into some examples where I can really demonstrate this. And I think Sven, there was a YouTube, sorry I forgot who you were, but there was a guy on my channel that left a comment talking about the balancing of it around Sven, and it got me thinking, and it got me doing a little bit more research, but we'll get into that. So, Manta Style is dissemblable. So that will give you a Yasha and an Ultimate Orb. So, Ultimate Orb builds into a bunch of things, which is nice. Yasha only builds into S and Y and Manta. Is Eye of Scotty? I don't think Eye is. No. Abyssal Blade is dissemblable. Vanguard builds into your Crimson Guard, and that's it. And Skullbasher only and Abyssal. And Skullbasher only builds into Abyssal. Dragon Lance is dissemblable, which is a very nice buff to the item. But it's already quite good because it gives you range, and most of the heroes that like to build it also would like to build the Hurricane Pike down the road later. Glimmer Cape, not cake. Shadow Amulet and Cloak. This is a very, very, very strong item, and one of the reasons that it's strong is because of this build, because you can turn the Shadow Amulet into a Shadow Blade, and you can turn the Cloak into the thing that builds into Pipe. Sorry, having a brain fart here. I'm pretty tired, if you guys didn't know. Hood of Defiance. So that's pretty nice. Lotus Orb, that's nice. This is an example of an item that is made much, much stronger by the fact that you can disassemble it. Dragon Lance is made much stronger by the fact that you can disassemble it because Band of Elvenskin builds into some things, and Ogre Club builds into a bunch of things. Ags, BKB being the biggest, Echo Saber also being a big one. Echo Saber is also not disassemblable, which is very important, but we'll get to that. So, with Lotus Orb, making it disassemblable doesn't make it that much stronger. And the same is true for Manta Style. These are items that don't get much stronger by being disassemblable, because once you have a Manta, you generally want to keep that Manta. The decision to disassemble the Manta and use the components to make other items is kind of rare, and it's not allowing you to... Alright, so it's not allowing you to do what makes Disassembly really good. So what makes Disassembly good is the ability to pick out items that are cheap in gold cost, but high in item slot cost. And an example of this would be Assange Yasha. Assange Yasha is like 4,200, 4,100 gold, I want to say. Let's double check. So Assange Yasha is 3,900 gold for 16 to all stats, or 16 strength, 16 agility, attack speed, attack damage, and the movement speed and the maim. The maim being a big one here. Movement speed is a nice one, but the maim's a big one here. So on melee heroes, this is a very, very good item. It has good applications with strength heroes and agility heroes. It's weaker now than it has been in a while because it was nerfed a bit, but in general, especially back when this item was really, really, really strong, or not really strong, but a little bit stronger. I think it was I think it was 20%. Let me see the change logs on these nerfs. So they increased the proc chance. Oh, it looks like it's been buffed. I thought that they had nerfed it at some point. Maybe they just nerfed it a while back. Because the item was pretty popular for a while. Reduced attack damage bonus, reduced movement speed bonus, greater maim got nerfed. So that was a long time ago, though. That's 6.55. That's like 10 years ago or something. So I thought that they had actually nerfed it. Here we go. They nerfed it for ranged heroes, which is understandable. The greater maim was nerfed on ranged heroes. So anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. But what I'm trying to demonstrate is that this is a pretty good... like Assange and Yasha are both very good items. They're pretty balanced. They're much more heavily in favor of gold efficiency to giving you stats than they are item slot. Taking up an item slot. So the fact that you can combine them early on, like you don't really want to have, like Terrorblade, for instance, who loves stats, you don't want to have Assange and Yasha as one of your 6 ultimate items if you're farming out of control. And the same is true for pretty much anyone. But a Manta Style is something that you probably would want to have on Terrorblade when you're 6-slotted. The item can be controversial, but you typically would want it. And a Halberd is not a bad item either in its own regard. So it gives you disarm, and it gives you the evasion, and it becomes a pretty good value slot. But especially back when Talisman of Evasion was like 1,800 gold, like that's a very expensive jump for this item when you're not getting a heck of a lot more stats. However, having these guys separate in terms of a Heaven's Halberd and a Manta Style is much more powerful. It actually makes Assange and Yasha a much more powerful item because you can disassemble it and build into something else. Another good example of this is Sven and Echo Saber. So people are like, Echo Saber is not disassemblable. Echo Saber is not disassemblable. You can't break it down into its core pieces. What makes up an Echo Saber? So an Echo Saber is made from an Ogre Club and an Oblivion Staff. The Oblivion Staff also goes into the recipe for a Orchid of Malevolence. And you need an Orchid to get a Bloodthorn. And the Bloodthorn is, of course, it's like the most expensive item in the game outside of a level 5 Dagon. It basically, it wrecks. It's very, very, very strong on heroes like Clinks, and people discovered it's very, very strong on heroes like Sven, not in small part because it helps him with mana issues. It's actually one of the reasons why you won't see people picking the bonus mana very often at level 10, because of the fact that once you start building into these late-game items and your mid-game items, you start to have enough regen that it doesn't matter. So let's look up Orchid. So let's go ahead, move this over. And so Oblivion Staff builds into Orchid. So Orchid is 4,075 gold, and this is 1,650. So this would basically bring the cost of your Orchid down to 2,500 gold. This means your Orchid is now 2,500 gold. This gives you a 1,650 gold advantage towards buying that Orchid to create your Bloodthorn, just by already having an Echo Saber, and you are almost 100% going to have an Echo Saber because it's very, very good. It gives you that double attack, and it helps with Sven's mana issues, which again, I'm talking about one of the reasons people don't usually get the level 10 talent to give him the bonus mana, because they deal on regen, and having more max mana doesn't give him a lot, because though he's very mana starved, if he's at full mana, he will always have enough mana to burn down all his abilities unless he's lost a bunch of mana from Silencer or some shit, or lost a bunch of int. So, Orchid of Malevolence, this is a very good reason why Echo Saber is not disassemblable. Echo Saber being disassemblable allows you to, once you get into the late game, so like Echo Saber is an item where you go, why would I ever want to get rid of it? Remember, it's a pretty cheap item. It gives you a lot of value for the cost that goes into it, but it's not very slot efficient. And you can replace this through multiple items. When you're at the stage of the game where you have something like an AC and a Moonshard, maybe you've eaten a Moonshard, you already have a huge amount of attack speed, and Sven has the initiation of throwing his stun out. So you don't really need that Echo Saber anymore. And in one fell swoop, if you save up enough money, you can just sell the whole Echo Saber, and then you can convert this 1,650. So let's see how much Echo Saber is. Echo Saber is 2,650. So if you sell the entire Echo Saber, you get half gold back So that's what? That's 1,325 gold. And once you have that 1,325 gold, you're at less than the cost of the Oblivion Staff. And if you could disassemble it, then you can also get the Ogre Club from it, and the Ogre Club builds into BKB, which Sven needs in most situations. And the Ogre Club also builds into Ags, which is kind of rare on Sven, but it's situational. Also builds into a Halberd, which I mean, if you're going this route, you probably are interested in the Halberd, but it still could potentially be a thing. There are 3 big items, or at least 2 big items in the form of Ogre Club that you would be almost certainly putting them to, or possibly and almost certainly putting them to, if you could disassemble your Echo Saber. And of course, there is the argument that you probably would get the BKB before you get the Bloodthorn if you had the Echo Saber starting. But you can still put this towards an Ags, and this makes Ags a much better value proposition because it's now 1,000 gold cheaper. So this is a very good example of how a hero is being balanced through the assemblable, the whether or not an item can be disassembled. So let's move forward a little bit. Mjolnir, it's another item that you can disassemble and use the parts for other things, but why would you want to? You've already bought the recipe, and the Hyperstone can build into other things, which is nice, but then you just have a Maelstrom taking up slots. Perseverance is nice to break down, kind of, but you're... Ring of Aquila can break down into Ring of Bassi and Wraithband, but to my knowledge, Wraithband, yeah, it only builds into Aki, so then you have a dead Wraithband that you have to sell, and the Ring of Basilius goes into your Vlads. Silver Edge disassemblable, but generally speaking, you want the Silver Edge once you've built it, unless you're in some kind of emergency situation and need to get an ultimate orb to get something like an Eye of Skadi, for instance, a Slark. So Slark can benefit from this still pretty massively. He can rush a Silver Edge, start building the Skadi, and then break off the ultimate orb, put the recipe into his backpack, and then still have the Shadow Blade and have the Eye of Skadi, and then farm up another ultimate orb, which still gives him a big power spike. But you still want to have the Silver Edge completed at the end, so it's not that big of a jump. So Eagle Song and Ghost Scepter from Ethereal Blade, yeah. So Ghost Scepter doesn't build into anything but Ethereal Blade, and then Eagle Song builds into Ethereal Blade and Butterfly. But again, once you've gone down that road, you've kind of limited yourself significantly. Shiva's is another one where, yeah, there are a lot of things you can do with those components, but this is a very high-level item, and it's not that good. What makes an item being disassemblable good is if it's an item that gives you a lot that's relatively cheap that you don't want to have when you're 6-slotted. Or maybe it's not relatively cheap, but it's cheap for what it gives you. Probably the most powerful example of this still existing in Dota 2 right now is Mask of Madness. Because even though with a Sven or with any other hero that you're using Mask of Madness to farm with, you want to have the Mask of Madness for the attack speed, you want the lifesteal, it gives you the sustain. But once you get, like, let's say 6-slotted, and you've been Mask of Madness farming with a Drow or a Sven or even a Luna, you're definitely not going to want to have that Mask of Madness, and you're going to have the attack speed from the AC and the Moon Shard and all this other stuff, so you don't really need the attack speed because it doesn't scale as hard anymore. You're just going to go ahead and break it down and build a Satanic. So then you have the lifesteal, you have even more lifesteal, and you're really, really tanky, and you're really, really, really hard to hurt. So yeah, 25 strength, 50 attack damage, plus you have the active that just makes you, like, insane. So yeah, pretty awesome. I actually didn't know that didn't have a mana cost. So Unholy Rage, the active on Satanic, does not have a mana cost. Did not know that. That was like 25 or 50. So anyway, the fact that it's disassemblable is very, very, very strong. When you do this, it also gives you a quarterstaff. And this is another boon for Sven, because if Sven is saving up to get that, if he's saving up to get that Bloodthorn, and he also is deciding to go the route of the Satanic, then he can use both of those pieces in that direction. That being said, it's a little bit more rare for Sven, because typically the Mask of Madness is one of the last items you get rid of, because it accelerates your farm, not only because of the attack speed and lifesteal, but because of the fact that it gives you movement speed as well. So it's not as big of a deal on Sven, though I do think it is a significant bonus. Solar Crest, another one that can be disassembled. Medallion is nice, but this is mostly a support play, I would speculate, because this is to get the Talisman of Evasion to combine with Assange, and then you can break people or disarm people. They can no longer right-click you. So I think that's a pretty big one. So finally, let me talk about the disassembly that I think is most significant to me and the heroes I play, and that is, of course, the Iron Talon. So Iron Talon is not disassemblable. Let's go ahead and just Iron Talon DotA, look this up. And so the Iron Talon, how much is that recipe? 125 gold. So you would get about 67 gold if you sold the recipe. You'd still have your Quelling Blade, which is nice for last hitting, and then you could use the Ring of Protection. Now this is the big one. By itself, you should never just vendor the Iron Talon if you don't have an item to replace it, and not never, but almost never. Because, like, I mean, there are a lot of reasons. But so, if you're playing a Lycan, then the Ring of Protection becomes a Ring of Basilius, which builds into your Vlads. Or actually, there's a lot of things Ring of Protection builds into. You can build it into an Urn of Shadows if you're your team's offlaner. So if you're taking offlane Night Stalker or offlane Spirit Breaker and you're using an Iron Talon to kill jungle creeps in the interim, then disassembling it and building an Urn of Shadows once the fight begins, once the fighting part of the game, once the mid-game, once the laning stage ends, it's powerful. The ability to disassemble this is very strong. If you were playing an anti-mage, you now have a piece of your Battle Fury and a piece, though the cheapest pieces of these items, of your Vlads. So that's the reason this isn't disassemblable. This item is considered to be, I think this item is considered to be one of the strongest items in the entire game, and buffing it further would just be absurd. However, it would be interesting to see if this was made disassemblable, because it would allow heroes like Anti-Mage to more quickly put that Battle Fury together if you have a good way to jungle them, which I don't think that there is this patch. I've been playing around with it, I'm not positive, but I don't think there's a very good way to do it on both sides this patch. And also to do it with heroes like Sven, and also to do it with heroes like Lycan. Another big thing here is a lot of heroes, they don't need the Iron Talon all game. Most heroes don't. But you do need the Quelling Blade if you're a melee hero and you're against a Nature's Prophet. So this gives you a Ring of Protection to build into something else. This gives you an Iron Talon, or this gives you a Quelling Blade to cut down trees, extra CS against creeps, and it lets you sell the recipe, so you get like 60-some gold back. So the only thing that you end up spending on this is the other 68 gold. Or 67, I'm not sure how the rounding would work. I don't know if you get the big piece or they get the big piece. But yeah, so yeah. Very, very, very effective. When you get to a point in the game where you need to build a new item, you either sell items like this and replace it with something else, or you disassemble them. And when you bring disassembling them into the mix, you significantly reduce the cost of future items for heroes. And that is the reason that some items are not disassemblable and some items are, because it directly affects how good other items, all the other items are in this big web, and how good specific heroes are in specific patches. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, hit those like and subscribe buttons. I'm recording this the evening of September the 5th. You should see it later tonight. And if you noticed a whole bunch of hero VODs showing up on my YouTube channel, then feel free to check them out. I just thought I would start putting VODs up of professional players in addition to my regular content to try to expand the channel. So thank you guys very much, and I will see you next time. This does, and you will see in the thumbnail, this does technically count as an ESM daily. I'm going to start doing dailies on topics like this and topics on like how armor works and stuff, but that's slowly being rolled out. And I am still looking at jungling guides and experimenting with them, but I'm a little bit less motivated to do that right now just because I've done almost every hero that I really enjoy jungling with, or I think jungling is any way, shape, or form remotely viable, and we've been on the same patch for like 6 months or 5 months or 4 months or 3 months. We've been on the same patch for a very long time now. So with a new patch coming out, you'll probably see a new flood of jungling guides from me, but in the meantime, professional Dota 2 hero VODs, you will get esports monies dailies like this one, and maybe the occasional jungling guide sprinkled in there, and then of course the pubcast show with Wire Guitars. So thank you very much for watching, and peace!